Matthew is the New York Times bestselling author of How to Travel the World on $50 a Day and runs the award-winning budget travel site nomadicmat.com. He realized cubicle life wasn't for him and set off to travel the world. His writings and advice have been featured in the New York Times, CNN, The Guardian, UK, Lifehacker, Budget Travel, BBC, Time, Yahoo Finance, and countless other publications. I couldn't be more thrilled to welcome him to Strand. So please join me and put your hands together for him.
I think that's taller than me, so I'll leave it up. Hi, everybody. Hi, there we go. Yes, hi. As that lovely introduction said, my name is Matt Kepnes, and I run the website nomadicmat.com. Also author of How to Travel the World on $50 a Day, and the new book, 10 Years of Nomad. I should get myself a copy. Thank you. So I thought a lot about what I would say today. I mean, my last book was very much practical travel, so I was like, oh, I'll just talk about like how to save money and answer questions. But like, this is a memoir. It's like stories. Like, do I do a reading? I can't do a reading. I don't have a book here, so I thought I'd dance a jig, and then that was vetoed by my team, especially after they saw me dance. So I thought on my walk here what I would say, and I decided that I will talk about myself a little bit and why I started traveling, what you'll get in the book, what the book's about, and just generally my outlook on how to be a better traveler. Because in the end of the day, that's really what the book is about, the lessons I learned through 10 years of travel on being a better traveler. So for those of you who don't know my story, who doesn't read the website? A couple of people, yes, that's pretty cool. New fans. So I started traveling back in 2006. I had quit my job to travel the world. I had never really grown up in a travel family. The extent of my trips were to see my grandmother in Florida. We would drive down, my dad would try to break land records, much to my mom's consternation, and I'd be like, you're driving too fast. He still drives too fast. So I never really was exposed to, other cultures growing up. I mean, Florida is its own culture, but, other cultures. Like, I didn't have a passport till I was 23. And I started traveling because I had graduated from college. I went to school to be a high school history teacher, and I couldn't get a job because I had graduated during a recession in 2003. And schools always cut high school history teachers first. No wonder why we repeat history so much. And so through some great nepotism, because my mom was a nurse, she got me a job at a local hospital. And I ended up working there for about 3 years. And it was 9 to 5. They gave me a 401k. I had sick days and days off and vacation time. And when it came to my year anniversary, my boss was like, you have to take your vacation. It's a use it or lose it scenario. So I don't remember how I ended up finding this tour, but I found this tour to Costa Rica. And it was in Costa Rica that I really fell in love with travel. And because it was so different from everything I had really known. It was, my life back home was commutes. It was the same old cubicle. I had 4 people in my office. None of them were my age. They were all much, much older, so we didn't really have much to talk about. They did not care about Lost, which was the hit show at the time. And so, but in Costa Rica, everything was different. I could wake up and do whatever I wanted, anytime I wanted. I was meeting people from around the world. I was like hiking mountains and going through waterfalls, and it was like super fun. And I was like, this is what I want to do more often. But I had grown up in the States where we don't really have a travel culture. We have a vacation culture. We have this idea that you work for 50 years, you take 2 weeks off, you spend a lot of money, you get a tan, you make everybody jealous, and then you work for the next 50 weeks to do it all over again. And so I had always grown up with this idea that to travel was to do something that was really expensive. It was something that people didn't do often, not because they didn't want to, but because they couldn't afford it. And so I decided that, well, that must be the only way. And so I saved up all my vacation time again, and when 2005 rolled around, I decided that I was going to use it all up in the beginning of the year, and I went to Thailand with my buddy Scott. He's in the book. He swears that I was the one that wanted to go to Thailand, but I remember the story differently. And since I got to write it, that's how I wrote it. Because I originally remember wanting to go to the Galapagos, but he was like, that seems boring. Let's go somewhere exciting. And we ended up on Thailand. And it was there that I met 5 backpackers. And they play a central role in this story because it was through talking to them on this tuk-tuk ride up. Who's been to Chiang Mai, Thailand? Lots of you, yeah. So you've been to Wat Do Suthep? Yeah. So you go, it's a temple outside of town, and on this ride, we started to get to talking, and they're like, you are crazy. You took all your vacation time in January? What are you going to do the rest of the year? And I thought, I hadn't really thought about that. But we started getting to talking. It was my first time really exposed to backpackers. Everything I knew about backpackers was from media. They were like poor college kids who slept in really crummy dorms, and it was like the movie Euro Trip. But these people in front of me seemed really normal, sane. They didn't smell like. So like I was like, where are all these smelly backpackers I hear about? They were not them, and I was really fascinated by their lifestyle, the idea that you could travel long term on a budget. I had never been exposed to that before, and it was with talking to them that I decided that they hold the secret, that this is what they had unlocked the mystery that was, long-term travel. How do I get to travel more? By following them. So I quit my job. I worked for a year and a half, and then I went overseas. And my original trip was supposed to last 1 year, and it lasted 18 months because I ended up living in Thailand for a while. And then I came home, and I sat in my cubicle, because I got a temp job, and I said, this is fucking terrible. And I had a lot of time on my hands, and so I said, let me start this website. And I called my boss back in Bangkok. I said, if I came back to Asia, could I teach English again? He was like, oh yeah, sure, no problem. So I was like, I'm going to go back to Europe and basically retrace my route a second time. So I did the only sane thing. I booked a one-way flight back to Europe. And after my sister graduated college that May, I was off again. And I never really had any intention to be a long-term traveler. I didn't really know what I wanted to do other than I know what I didn't want to do, and that was sit in a cubicle again. And so one day sort of rolled into the next, and the next, and the next, and 10 years had gone by. And over that time, I had gone through many ups and downs. My friends back in the corner over there will attest that every year I would say, this is my last year, and I'm really going to settle down, and then I would go back out again. And they still don't believe me that this is the end. But over that time, one of what I really wanted to impart in this book that I wrote was I wanted to really write about the why of travel. What really motivates us to quit our jobs, to keep on going? What motivates us to be not a vacationer, but a traveler? And I think there's a big difference from that. And I think whether you're no one's probably here gonna backpack the world for 10 years. I mean, maybe if you do, you can write the next book. I will be in the audience. I trademarked that idea, so I want royalties. I got to fund my next trip, But whether you're away for 2 weeks, 2 months, 10 years, what I think is really important and that I noticed along the way was that I hate the traveler versus tourist debate. I think it's silly. We're all tourists. But I think what really defines us as good travelers is the desire to get out of the norm, to learn to explore cultures on a deeper, more intrinsic level than just take pictures of sites. And I think one thing I really learned in the beginning was I was I was in Prague, and I was going to backpack, and I was going to get drunk in the hostel and take lots of pictures. And after a while, you realize like a lot of backpacking is that, but that's fun in its own right, but that's not really like a great cultural experience. And as I traveled, I realized that backpacking is a great vehicle to get out of hotels and hostels, but it becomes its routine in its own right. And it's very easy to get sucked into this world of hostel parties and all this jazz. And just getting drunk and doing it over and over again. And so the evolution of my nomadic ways was realizing that to be a good traveler is to not listen to anybody else. Because so often everyone was always like, oh, well, I've been here. Did you go there? Oh, you really missed out on this stuff. And for a while, I would really feel bad about my own trip because I would like, oh, I missed this like cool thing. Like, I'm not really a cool traveler. But you realize like your trip is only for yourself and you have nobody else to care about. Like, do whatever you want. I remember admonishing this guy in Cambodia who had skipped Angkor Wat. He was in Siem Reap, and he was like, I'm not going. I was like, what? You're crazy. This is a must-see, right? How are you? He's like, I just don't like temples. And I was like, you're crazy. And then I realized, like, actually, there's a lot of things that I don't like, and I don't want to see them. So why would I waste time doing that? And so your trip is your own, but if you really want to be a good traveler, you have to get out of not only that sort of hotel resort lifestyle, right? As a backpacker, we're always like, look at those people in the buses, right? But we don't really turn the lens on ourselves and say, well, we're really doing the same thing, just with less money, right? We just hang out in hostel bars and get drunk and go on free walking tours and go to the full moon party for like a month at a time. So through the book, I learned that what being a good traveler is about is avoiding both of those sort of extremes and wanting to understand a place beyond pictures for people, for destinations, understand how the world works and how we fit in that. And a lot of the book is how I discovered that for myself, right? I grew up. Who's read some of the book at least? Anyone? One, two. Okay, it just came out today, but some people are fast readers. I really like left because I grew up a very nerdy kid. Very difficult for me to talk to people. This is also extremely hard to get up in front of a crowd and jabber on. And I left because I really wanted to be like a part of a group, and backpackers were really welcoming, and I wanted a way to sort of like learn to be an extrovert, and I liked how travel really allowed me to test different personalities every day, right? You could, pretend you're somebody in Rome, and like that could totally fail, and you could just be like, well, I'm gonna go to the next hostel today in Florence and like be Billy, and like, and who is this person I could construct? And so, travel doesn't really, you carry your baggage with you, but travel gives you the space to sort of test out different ways to get over a lot of, the baggage you carry. And travel really allowed me to understand that it's not what people think, it's not how you travel, or what you do, it's like why you travel. Like, what are you out there to do, and feeling comfortable in your own skin by just not, caring about what a backpacker in Rome thought about me, or what people in Thailand thought about me. It was, how do I think about myself? And I think one of the benefits of travel is that it really allows you so many chances to learn about yourself. And you can do that when you are out there talking to people, learning about other cultures, seeing how people do things, testing the limits of your comfort, and not only breaking out of the tourist mindset, but also the backpacker mindset. And so throughout this book, I really wanted to impart on this idea that being a nomad and being a traveler isn't about being a certain type of person. It's about being who you are and who you're most comfortable with. And that's why it's sort of called A Traveler's Journey Home, because, well, I mean, I tell you the ending, then, you're going to return the book. But, it is basically, it works on a couple levels. It's like finding your physical home and finding that, who you are as a person, being comfortable wherever you are. And I think travel did that so much for me that I wrote this book in part to inspire others to not to find their home, but also become better travelers in many ways, and go and just want to find the why of the world. My last book, How to Travel the World, was really about how to do it on a budget. Get this credit card, open this bank account, stay in this hostel. This book is much more about why. Why should you travel? Why should you quit your job or take a career break or do anything that gets you out in the world? Because when you travel, you learn so much about yourself. As much as other people teach you about their culture, you learn just about you. And I think that is the greatest gift about travel, because when you learn about yourself and when you become more comfortable in your own skin, when you realize that home is just a state of mind, you become a much better human, and you become a much more empathetic human. And I think the world needs a lot of empathy these days. So the Maya Angelou quote is, travel won't end bigotry, and then I can't remember the rest, but it will make us all friends. I'm paraphrasing here. So it will make friends out of strangers, and it will make the stranger that is inside you your friend. And I know that sounds weird to say, but I really think there's a transformative power to travel, and that's why I jotted this whole thing down. Plus, there were some crazy stories in there that I couldn't really tell on the blog because they live on the internet, and they also live on a book now, but nobody can Google search them. So I mean, that's really about the book. You're sort of the guinea pigs for this speech, so give feedback cards later. But mostly, I really want to take your questions and talk about travel, and give feedback, ask me questions, and that's it. And I'm going to sign all your books, and then after we sign your books at 8:30 or so, or just whenever this is over, you can meander to Solas. It's a bar on East 9th, and I have a space there. We can all party, and if you bought a book, you get a free drink. So, yeah.
Hi, my name is Maria. I'm also a travel lot, and I follow a lot of people on Instagram, see how is everything pretty and fun. So question for you, how do you manage your personal life, girlfriend, family, kids? Is it out of equation? And because I think it's people as getting older, they want a more stabilized life. And how do you manage?
Yeah, I don't really manage well. How do I manage my personal life? Well, there's still no ring on the finger. And a good chunk of the book is about relationships. So, and the ups and downs that come with finding romance on the road, and timing. Timing is very, all relationships are about timing. The two big ones in the book are both about being poorly timed for me and for the other person. Part of the reason I wanted to sort of settle down was because I wanted some more stability in my romantic life, as well as in my just friendships. I like hanging out with my friends. I like when they text me. And I hang. It's nice. My friend Jason says a tree can't grow without roots, And that really always struck me, because as travelers, we're like always roaming around thinking for the next adventure. And that was great for 10 years, but eventually, every book has another chapter, and so the next chapter was sort of settling down and planting roots. And I think when you're 25 and you're traveling and it's all about like, let's just go and have fun, and I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to keep on going. When you're 38 and 8 people are coming drunk into the dorms, you're just like, all right, like, I think I'm over this. I think it's time for a private room. And so, yeah, you can find romance on the road. I know plenty of people who have traveled, found somebody and like ended up getting married. Like a couple in the book, we all hung out on a beach in Thailand, and like I ended up at their wedding a year later. And so it does happen, but like somebody always has to make the decision to move, and I was never really good at making that decision. So, long short, yes, right there, and then in the purple would be.
Hi, my name's Caleb. With Intrepid Group, we do group tours, but I've also been lucky enough to do some of the same sort of travel as you. Being from Australia, we get a little bit more time off and tend to go wandering around for a year. So I've been lucky to squeeze 4 years out. So I tip my hat to you if you've done it 10 in a row, because that was hard enough. The one question I have for you is, you focused a lot on sort of getting out of your comfort zone. What I'd like to know is, in that 10 years, when and where were you most uncomfortable rather, and what happened?
Well, I think one of the most uncomfortable moments is when I moved to Bangkok without knowing anybody. I was about a year, about 8 months into my trip, and I decided that I really wanted to, be a more intrepid traveler and like have a cool story. Like, have you been to this part about Thailand? No, you haven't. Ha ha ha. I'm better than you. So I really wanted to go up to this area called Isan, northeast Thailand. Not a lot of people go there. A lot more people go there now, but like back in 2005, hardly anybody went there. And so I thought like if I learned some Thai, like I'd have a much easier time getting around. So I moved to Bangkok to learn Thai for a month. And for the first 2 weeks, I just played World of Warcraft because I didn't know anybody. And as much as I really loved World of Warcraft, I had this really big idea that like I was going to move to Bangkok. Like I have a month there. I'm going to make tons of friends. I'm going to do this. It's going to be great. None of that happened for like 2 weeks. The only reason that changed was because I had met somebody who knew somebody that lived in Bangkok and was like, I'm tired of you complaining on Facebook about how bored you are. Go hang out with this guy. And he had lived there long enough where he knew lots of people. And I ended up staying 8 months. I got a job. I made friends. I got a girlfriend, which didn't last because then I was like, bye, I'm leaving Bangkok. And so that was a really uncomfortable time because I didn't know anybody. Travel friendships are easy. Like, hey, you're in a hostel, I'm in a hostel. We have 24 hours to be friends. There we go, we're friends, and we all move on. Starting your life again in a city you don't know anybody. I didn't speak Thai. It wasn't that good. I didn't know how to make friends. There's no like meetup.com back then. There's no, couch surfing hangouts. There's none of this like cool, like you can't just go online, heck, Instagram didn't even exist back then. That's how long ago it was. And so that was a really learning experience in terms of like growing as a person. Just like straight adrenaline I did a canyon swing once, and I'm petrified of heights. Really, really scared of heights. But after a couple of tequila shots, they convinced me to go up. And there's a video on the website because they filmed it, and all you hear is somebody just screaming like, ah! Like it's very embarrassing. But I leave it up there anyway. I would never do a canyon swing again. So.
Hi there. I wrote down a couple notes here. I wanted to talk about your breaking point when you were still living cubicle life, when it just all of a sudden hit you as someone who is getting close to that and currently living cubicle life. I want to talk about what drives us currently to this stability of cubicle life, but also that yearning for travel and that freedom. Can there be a best of both worlds? Is that realistic? And should you go into, if you were to do something similar to what you did, with a plan, or should it be solely for the reason that you went to, for instance, find yourself or find home, if you will?
Yeah. So like, is there a balance between cubicle life and non-cubicle life? I hated my job because I just didn't like it. They always talk about, find your passion. Nobody finds their passion. That's a bullshit thing. You stumble into it. Like, I stumbled into blogging because I liked writing, and I turned out I could run a good website, and the more I did it, the more I really enjoyed doing it, and the better I got, the more I enjoyed doing it. I hated working in a hospital. It was the most boring shit to me. But I probably work more hours now than when I worked there. My mom's a nurse. She works crazy hours a week, 12-hour shifts on her feet. She loves every second of it. And so I think one thing I learned through all this was that it's not about the amount you work. It's do you find joy through your work? And most people who end up quitting their job to travel don't. I know a lot of people who just take career breaks. They just are hey, I just need some time off to mentally recuperate, and I think that's fine. But people who are I hate what I do, I need an escape, tend to just really dislike what they do, and so they look for a way to escape. And with so much stuff online now, quitting your job to travel is one thing people do, and I think that's great. I clearly espouse that the benefits of travel. But I think, you can't take the baggage with you. You take the baggage with you, right? So, if you're unhappy because of your job, quit, go travel. But if you're just, unhappy, you're going to be unhappy in Italy, too, right? If you're a shy, introverted person, you're going to be a shy, introverted person at a bar in Sydney. That's, the setting will change, but you haven't really solve the deeper issues. And so I don't like when people are I'm going to go, travel and solve all my problems. It's not going to happen. But travel, as I said, is a good way to sort of test your comfort zones and figure out what it is you like and don't like and are good at and not so good at and what you like. I know a lot of people who quit their job to travel. In 6 months, they were back at home because they realized, they didn't like their job. That was the problem. And they thought if they just left, everything would magically change. But they missed their friends. They missed their family. That's what they liked. They weren't meant to live out of a backpack forever. And so, that might be something you learn too. And there's nothing wrong with that. If coming home is not a failure. And so I would just always say are you leaving because you hate your job, or are you leaving because you hate your life? Because, if you hate your job, that's one thing. But if you're I'm happy with my life and traveling will solve all my problems, you're in a world of disappointment.
Hi, Matt. I have a question.
Hey.
Hi. We don't know each other at all.
I've never seen this woman in my life. She is not a plant.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway. So you mentioned a few minutes ago that when you started traveling, you made the good point that technology didn't exist in the same capacity that it does now, particularly social media. So I'd love to know that, especially since now our travels are basically governed by Instagram and all of these social media platforms, how has the way you traveled now, how does that differ from the way you traveled back then? And do you enjoy it more or less now than you did back then when there wasn't this tourism infrastructure that was guided by social media?
So how has travel changed? How has technology changed travel? I mean, when I started traveling in 2005, which in the internet time is the Stone Ages. It's not even the Stone Age. It's what's before the Stone Age? I don't know. That prehistoric age. If I wanted to upload photos, I had to find an internet cafe. Nobody had a phone. Nobody if a hostel had a computer terminal that was like, wow, we could like check our AOL mail. Like, I mean, if I wanted to hang out with you in Prague, I'd be like, okay, we're going to be at this hostel at this time, and I just kind of hope you had to be there, and I maybe wait a couple of days to get held up. Now, I think technology is a double-edged sword. It has definitely made travel easier, and I think that's a good thing because more people are traveling these days. And it's become cheaper to travel, and it's been easier to connect with people. It becomes a lot easier to stay in touch with people, but I think people are also too hooked onto travel. If travel is a way, if part about travel is a way to like find yourself and learn and grow, you can't do that when you have one foot back at home, right? Like you have to kind of be disconnected. And so I miss that part of travel. When walking through a hostel and being like, I guess I'm gonna have to talk to people because I don't have anything else to do. Nowadays, if I don't want, I can just bring up my phone and watch Netflix, and everybody does that. And so I think like people need to put down their phones more when they travel. I don't think technology per se has ruined travel. I think our addiction to technology has ruined travel because it's probably ruined most of our day-to-day lives. So we get so hooked on it that we take it with us, and thus we lose sort of that benefit of travel, that feeling of getting lost and just like being uncomfortable, because like humans are not really good at being uncomfortable. Like there's safety, like this, our brains are wired for that. So like if there's a way for us to retreat to safety, we're gonna do that. And when you're uncomfortable, you search for what you know, and that's your friends on Facebook Messenger. What are you doing right now? Hanging out in the hostel, That's not what you should be doing. And so I hope people put their phones away when they travel more. But I don't think travel is good or bad. It's just what you use it. I don't think people should do it for the gram, right? Just, take a picture and enjoy it later. Sometimes just don't take a picture at all. Just, take a picture with your mind. You can't be fully present in the moment if you're just sitting there like, okay, I got to do this with my dress. And now like, okay, now like working up for your couple, like, okay, this way, like you missed the whole sunset by the time that's over. So, yeah.
Hi, I got 2 questions.
Okay.
One is, how did you kind of deal with the differences in language and culture when you went to these multiple places? So like, did you like learn some of the language, et cetera, stuff like that? And then my second question is, I like to eat. So what was the best thing you ate during the time that you've been traveling?
I'll answer the first question. The second question first. What's the best thing to eat? Somebody asked me that on Reddit today, and I just don't have an answer for that. So that's why it's easy for me to answer for it. I'm eating so much good food over like. I'm a big fan of this like pork noodle soup from this street stall and like in my old neighborhood in Bangkok. I probably ate it there 2-3 times a week. Really good. First question was, how do you deal with language? We do have the benefit of being native English speakers, so most of the world can get by on basic English. But I always try to learn a few basic phrases in the local language. Nobody expects you to be fluent, but if you can at least make an effort, people appreciate that. Plus, it's super fun when they start making fun of how you're butchering their language. And then like that leads to like some funny, awkward moments, which then bonds you closer together. And like, people are like, oh, yeah, like that's not how you say it. Here, yeah, now I'll help you. It helps, lets people guards. It helps like people drop their guard when you do that. But people want to help you, and most communication is nonverbal. So, making an effort, charades, sounds, like that always goes a long way. I was in the Ukraine, and I had to go to take this train to Kiev early in the morning, and the hostel staff was like, don't walk. It's kind of sketchy at 5 o'clock in the morning. We're going to get you a cab. So they get me a cab. I go in the cab, and we just sit there for a few moments. And I assumed they told him where I was going, but they didn't. So I was like, "Oh, train station." And he looked at me. And then I did the thing we always do, train station. And he still looked at me, and I was like, "Choo-choo." I was like, yeah. And we off. I made it to the train station. So, I had a friend like cluck chicken once for, like he wanted chicken in his food. And so like a lot of that kind of goes a long way. Also makes for super funny situations that you bond over. So, like if you're, in the middle of, Kyrgyzstan, like, and you don't speak Russian, it's gonna get really hard. But, people will work it out because, most communication is nonverbal. And that's one of the benefits of technology is you basically have, Google Translate, which is not perfect, but can still get you a little ways. We used to have phrase books, now it's all on the phone. So.
Hi. I was wondering if you could speak more to the financing of your trips. You mentioned that you got jobs, and I imagine at some point you didn't have to work anymore because you were writing and it was all online. So what was that journey like, and at what point did you know that it was financially feasible to keep doing this and not settle down somewhere?
I funded my first trip working. I worked and worked and worked and worked, and so it was 3 years of working and overtime and just saving. And the beauty of working 50, 60-hour weeks is you don't have a lot of time to then spend the money that you've made, so like that really helped. I taught English in Thailand for close to 2 years, and I taught in Taiwan for a couple of months. And so when I started this website in 2008, I was still teaching English, and I ended up going back to Bangkok to teach for a bit. I went to Taiwan, then went back to Bangkok. And it wasn't probably until like a year and a half, 2 years, where I felt I was making enough money from the website to be able to travel full time. There were like milestones. It was like, okay, I can cut down my hours. I have enough to travel. Now I have enough to like get an apartment in a place. And it was very time. It took a while, but going back to the whole, don't follow your passion thing. A lot of people are like, I'm gonna quit my job and like open a restaurant or like start a garden blog, and I'm like, that's a terrible idea, because like you still have to eat and you have to pay rent. And so I think I started this as a hobby, and one day it became my full-time job. And I think a lot of people now who quit to become digital nomads, most of the OG digital nomads, old school people, from those mid-2000s had side jobs while they started this, and that gets lost in sort of the dream of quit your job and make money online.
How you doing? I know that you got Instagram, like Facebook, all sorts of like social media, all the writing going on, and I got two questions. I'm not used to like hearing myself on the microphone.
I think we're running low on time, right? So you're gonna have to do one question.
Okay. All right. So
and then 1, 2, and then one more from here, and then
sure.
that's it.
Yeah. Now that this became your job, so to speak, writing, publishing, do you still enjoy traveling, or do you travel for revenues, for business?
That's a good question. I think that ties back into what Onika was saying earlier. One of the big things in the book, like the big shift that happens, is when I realized, his question was, do I still enjoy traveling and do I travel and work? Is I started to get panic attacks because I couldn't balance work and travel at the same time. And that became sort of a learning lesson that was, I like my job and I like traveling, but I can't do them both at once because, I'm out enjoying a city and all I'm thinking about is, I should really be doing work. And then I'm working and I'm like, what the hell? Like, I didn't fly all this way to like find the Starbucks, be like, where's the Wi-Fi signal in my hostel? And so nowadays, I write when I travel because I enjoy writing, and I keep up with my email, and but I like don't take on projects, you know. So if it's like, oh, we're gonna like start a new course, or we're gonna write a new book, or whatever, that's done when I'm in one place at home, and then when I leave, I you know, that's done, because I can't do both at the same time. A couple hours a day to writing, that's fine. Gives me still the whole day, but like I didn't travel to a new place to spend time behind my desk in a coffee shop.
Cool. So I've been traveling and living abroad for about 2 years now, and so I've been working here and there, like also like Vietnam, in London, in more places, and now I'm working more online. But I want to know how, like, your advice for someone who wants to start her digital nomad career. Like, I don't know, how should what's your approach in it? What should you like advise me to do?
So how to start the digital nomad career? Again, don't quit your day job, right? You know, if I don't know what you want to do, so I'll make this a very general answer. You know, figure out what you want to do as and do it as a hobby, and get good enough at it that you can devote more time to it. Because if you just quit your job, you have the pressure of bills. And what happens to a lot of people is that they quit and they're like, crap, I have to make money. So they start taking anything for money, and then it's easy money, and they don't have the time to build their own business, like with sustainable revenue, like creating books, or you know something other than like trading their time for money. And once you get on that cycle, it's really hard to break it, because you're like, oh, like I'm gonna go to this thing, and then this thing, and then this thing, and I got to take this client, and you're never working on your own business. You're just helping others, and yeah, that's a great way to make money, but it's not sustainable in the long term, because eventually one day you're like, I don't want to go on this client assignment. I want to sit and hang out with my dog, you know, but you can't, because you're like, you haven't built anything that can support that. So if you start it as a hobby, so you don't have the pressure of bills. And then once it starts to generate revenue on its own, you have a lot more freedom and flexibility to just quit and jump.
Hi. What is some advice you would give to a young person who's been saving for years and knows they want to take maybe a year off post-college to travel, but knows they're going to have to deal with very heavy backlash from a closed-minded family?
That's a good one. So what do you say to someone who wants to travel but knows their family is not going to support them? Well, this is actually one of the benefits of all the blogs out there, is because you have an infinite number of case studies where you can just show people like, hey, like, see all these people? They survived. Because my parents were like, you're going to die. Like, how are you going to stay in touch? What's going to happen? You're going to die. And like, I came back and I'm like, I'm going to go away again. They're like, you're still going to die. And so like, you're never going to convince them. So you just kind of have to do it. But you can at least give them examples as to be like, other people have done this. I can do it too. And then you can flip that around to say, do you not believe in me? Because then like, where your parents, like, because I guess if your parents are those kind of people that could say, no, I don't. But then like, screw your parents, like get out of there anyway. So like, if you can flip those questions on their head, then usually people don't have a really good response. And like, oh, okay, well, I guess like, we trust you, we believe in you. You're still gonna die, but like, you know, all right. So, yeah. One more question. Anyone from this side? No one? Okay, well, she's got a question, so last one, make it the best one.
Hi. This kind of goes along with your question, but it's a little bit different. So I have a boyfriend who's very hesitant to travel longer than 1 week. Like, that's his limit.
Oof.
And I
think 1 week, what's the point of going?
It really irritates me, because like, that's like my dream. I could never do what you did, but I would like to go away for like a month at least, but what would your advice be for like it's a little bit different than a family member because I would like him to come with me. That's the idea.
Honestly,
just like knock him out and send him on a plane. Like, what do I do?
there are some great travel writers in the back who are in relationships who can probably give you a better answer. Clearly, I have not mastered that because here I am. So I don't feel I could give you a good answer for that because I never found the secret to that. There is a secret. People in the back have figured it out. I have no idea. When you learn, let me know. So thank you, everyone. Again, I'm going to sign your books, and then we're going to go to whoever wants to hang out a little bit more casually and formally, Solas on East 9th.